Hello and welcome to a very special bonus edition of the Seagull Eagle podcast. Crystal Palace are FA Cup winners. Let me say that again, FA Cup winners. Man City Pep's machine shut down by Dean Henderson, a back three powered by South London spirit and pure adrenaline. Eze, ice cold finish. Muniz, honestly, I've seen less chaos in a Marvel final battle. He was everywhere, defending, attacking, checking tickets at the turnstiles. And Henderson, well, he was everything, everywhere, all at once, including, controversially, outside his own box. We'll talk through it all. The Eze goal that was more composed than I was throughout the entire second half. The penalty save where Henderson said, "Not today, son, I've got a date with immortality." The disallowed second goal that nearly caused a medical emergency in row 19. And how we survived 10 minutes of added time where my Apple Watch thought that I was being chased by wolves. We'll discuss Glasner's tactical masterclass, or as I'm now calling it, the Art of War Croydon edition. And if you're wondering what this means for next season, get your passports ready because Palace are going to Europe. Stick with us, we've got a trophy in the cabinet and we're about to podcast like champions. Well, I am anyway. This is Seagull Eagle.
Hello, Andy.
Hi, Neil. You all right?
I'm okay, I think.
Okay.
I'm not even going to ask how you are because it's pretty clear how you are. First of all, let me be honest and just say congratulations.
That means a lot.
It's hard to say that, but I want to start as I mean to go on. Congratulations to you.
I can see the pain. I can see the pain in your face.
Congratulations to your team.
Thank you. Which team's that?
The one that won yesterday.
Okay.
And I don't really want to say anything else on this pod, if I'm honest. But I appreciate that you're going to have a lot to talk about.
Well,
and
yeah.
I hope your voice lasts.
I'll be honest with you, I am struggling. I sound like a teenager going through puberty. I really do at the moment. I'm squeaking all over the place.
Right,
look,
come on.
Neil, I understand how difficult today is for you. We did promise everybody that we'd be back in the studio. It's Sunday today, just recovering from yesterday. So, yeah, we're hoping to get this one out probably by tomorrow for you. Look, a reminder of the job in hand, Neil.
Go on then, mate. Go on.
City were competing in their 14th FA Cup final, winning the trophy 7 times. Palace were competing in their 3rd FA Cup final, losing to Man United in 1990 and 2016. We were one of the 4 clubs to compete in 2 finals without ever winning the trophy. That's QPR, Birmingham and Watford. Palace have lost their last 3 FA Cup meetings with Man City by an aggregate score of 18-4. And the last time Palace beat City was back in 2021 in all competitions, a 2-0 win. That's 4 losses and 3 draws since then. Quite why I was so optimistic about this previously, I don't actually know. I felt like something special was going to happen.
Well, you did call it. You've been calling it for the last couple of weeks. You had it at feeling, didn't you?
Yeah.
And, well, we all know what's happened, but let's talk through it, shall we? So,
yeah.
Yesterday. Do you want to talk through the lineups? What do you want to do? Do you want to start before that? How do you want to go?
Let's start with the lineups then.
Okay.
Pretty much as expected for Palace. 2 changes from the team that beat Tottenham last week. Walton coming back from injury and Kamada coming back as well, both to replace Lerma and Hughes from the previous games.
Yeah.
Both actually ended up on the pitch yesterday anyway. And for Man City, there was 5 changes from the Southampton game. So as you predicted last week, he would do a bit of fiddling around before the game.
Oh, Pep, why'd you do this to me?
Yeah.
So Ortega, O'Reilly, Savinho, Marmoush and Doku all came into the starting lineup, didn't they? And Edison was on the bench. I'm scratch my head sometimes with Pep, and Phil Foden as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, their bench is still a better starting lineup than Southampton's, isn't it? Let's be honest. But there we go. Look, let's look at the pre-match because this was quite a day and it started early for us. We had a whole day planned. We spoke about it in the previous podcast. So our day started with a Palace breakfast at our neighbours, thanks to Bernard and Claire. It was lovely. The red and blue pancakes and Selhurst mess. And which is a version of Eton mess, red and blue. I had food colouring coming out of every orifice this morning, but honestly, it was genuinely delightful, and red and blue balloons everywhere, and they made a real effort. And for those who didn't listen to the previous podcast, one of our neighbours, Bernard, he'd hurt his leg, and he would have been there yesterday, but he wanted to do something special for me and my son, who were going, to kind of give us a good send off. So yeah, that was lovely. We jumped in the car and headed straight to Wembley. Here's an interesting one, Neil. Listening to the match build-up on the radio all the way down there, and I've never heard so much Palace talk on the radio. I don't know if you have this problem with Brighton or not, but if Palace play anybody, 90% of that is about the team that we're playing.
Oh, yeah.
And every now and again, someone who's got pretty much not much knowledge about our club would mention something that everybody knows and is common knowledge that they probably just Googled. And that would be pretty much the build-up. So it was lovely to hear a couple of hours. So we get to the stadium, and our objective was to get to the arena fan zone. Just outside Wembley Arena, they'd kind of cordoned a big area off. And as I say, last time for the semi-finals, didn't quite make it there, Neil. We got a bit too keen to get, my boy just wanted to see inside of the stadium and all that, and we kind of missed a bit of that atmosphere in the build-up. So on our way, we purchased 2 genuinely ridiculous cup final bucket hats, which I actually wore for you today into the studio. We look like something out of Kevin and Perry, to be pretty honest. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's not okay, but it was okay in that
it's
instance.
FA Cup final day, mate. You got to do it.
Yeah, it was better than the Jester hats that we tried on prior to that. So there we go. Anyway, Wembley Way was more like Eagle Boulevard. It felt like Croydon Street Party, red and blue everywhere, and it was very apparent that Palace fans specifically had got there early. For Man City fans, I guess it was probably just another day out. I'm not saying it didn't mean anything to them, because it clearly did. But when you've been there, I want to say something like 17 times recently or something, it tends to probably be just a bit of another trip to Wembley, whereas the Palace fans, this was Christmas come early. Most of the Man City fans turned up late and, of course, left early, pretty much like a council meeting for them. We get into the fan zone and we get handed our complimentary scarf. Thank you very much, Crystal Palace Football Club.
Very nice.
A nice touch, actually. And they were giving them out to everybody. A nice little memento for the day. The place was full of Palace fans, obviously, all with, I guess, a Christmas morning buzz to it, is what it felt like. Genuinely grown adults with a big smile on their face, a pint in their hand, and just happy to be there and to be part of it. And that feeling of being there but not being there to make up the numbers, there was a buzz of, actually, we could do this, which not only I was seeing amongst the fans, but also I was taking kind of a sneaky look at the TV on my phone, like watching BBC ITV, all that kind of stuff, and also on the radio on the way there. All of the buzz was like, actually, they might do this, which was interesting. So there was kind of a sense of optimism, I guess is the word. So we soaked up the atmosphere. What do you do in the fan zone, I hear you ask? Well, my son had a go at the penalty shootout. Failed miserably, but it doesn't matter. He did. We met the mascots, Pete and Alice. We got some brilliant photos taken courtesy of the Palace for Life Foundation. They do some really good work. And we've ended up with these kind of like photo booth style photos of us with loads of props. They're brilliant. They'll probably be in my wallet for years to come. We also got our faces painted. I'm proud to say it's the first time that I've had my face painted since I was 8 years old. And we looked ridiculous. We had the whole thing. My son had about 7 flags draped around him, a bucket hat on, face painted, and we were ready for war, is what we were. And we also met some great people yesterday. Obviously, being in that fan zone for a good few hours before kickoff, we sat down after we'd done all the stuff there was to do, and I ordered myself a shandy because I was driving from the bar. Harry had a Coca-Cola, and we sat down on the steps that were there and just had a really good chat with loads of people. As I was saying before on the previous pods, only in these situations do you kind of feel brave enough to have a chat to a random stranger and try and share your experience. And we met a great father and son who travelled all the way up from Devon for the game. So shout out to Gaza and Joel. Lovely chatting to you, and it was all part of our match day experience. And they were actually just sat in the block next to us, actually. Funny enough, found out that I actually went to the same school as one of them as well, which is really, really strange. Just shows you, right? That's why you should talk to more people. We then we then bumped into, for the second time as well, because this happened in the semi-final, 80,000 people at Wembley. We bumped into my son's school friends. So Rich, Jess and her brother were there, massive Palace fans. So it was lovely to see them literally in the entrance of Wembley. What are the chances? Just before we walked in. We walked into the stadium, we found our seats. And as I said to you before, we made a decision to change our kind of perspective on where we wanted to sit. And the objective of the day was to get amongst it and to feel the full atmosphere that was going on around us.
And did you?
Oh, mate, we did. We did. Honestly, we were right amongst it. We got there, and Harry's face when he realised that there was a flag on his seat was the first kind of wow moment for him, because before he watched down from above with all the people having fun with the flags and all that, and he was like, I wish we had one of them. And there was one on every seat. And not only that, there was also a couple of other little things that my son really enjoyed, which was the fact that Ian Wright and Roy Keane and everyone else were literally 9 rows in front of us,
cool.
Doing all of the ITV footage with Gary Lineker and all the other guys just a bit further along. So we observed all the pre-match traditions. And here's the thing, and I don't know whether this is for you as well, but I've never really had the process of thought on what happens in an FA Cup final until, and even when we did the bonus pod last week, when we were talking about it all, it suddenly occurred to me halfway through last week, I was like, there's going to be royalty there.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to sing the national anthem.
Yep.
And all of that went through my head.
You got the Abide With Me as well.
That's right. Yeah. Right. I mean, it was a full-on military parade.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was something quite spectacular. In fact, I'll be honest with you, it didn't look that spectacular from where I was sat. When I watched it on telly, I was like, I get what they did there. Because everything looks better from above, right? From that respect. But yeah, no, it really was quite the occasion. So we sang along with Abide With Me, which I knew the first 3 words to.
Yep.
And then it ended up being
that's the same for most people.
Yeah, and hand on the heart for the national anthem, and Harry got right involved in that one as well. That's quite a moment when you go to a place where you sing the national anthem. And as the teams made their way to the pitch, I've never genuinely felt part of something on that scale before in my entire life. The volume, the flags, the occasion, I genuinely never forget that. I mean, it's such an occasion that you kind of forget. You're so focused on doing what you need to do and like waving the flag and singing and chanting. Yeah. You actually can't see the pitch anymore because all you can see is the flags. And then everyone's smacking you with flags and all this kind of stuff. And it's sort of balloons flying everywhere and all this kind of thing. And then it's not until afterwards, then you realise you're like, the end of the lineups happened and they're shaking hands and you're like, oh my God. This is about to start. We kind of missed all of that because we were too busy waving all our flags.
But before it started, though, you had that huge tifo as well, didn't you?
Mate, it was. Yeah, this is quite a big thing actually, and something I'm incredibly proud of the club and the fans of doing. So I think I mentioned it on the previous podcast that they've raised. I didn't actually get a chance to check the final figures, but I think they've raised around the 50k mark. I mean, it's phenomenal, and most of that was raised by the fans. I know that there was a few of the players that chipped in sort of £500,000 or whatever it was towards it, but. If you look on the Just Giving page, the majority of it was all, £10, £20 or whatever it was, a fiver, kids putting their pocket money in, to do that, which is wonderful.
So talk me through what it was, because when I saw it, it was like a guy, presumably with his children or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this time the display showed a Palace fan celebrating with his 2 children.
Yeah.
The fan was Mark Whelan, who was a Palace season ticket holder, and he was pictured celebrating amongst the fans after, I don't know if you remember this, but obviously it's in kind of Palace folklore when Darren Ambrose scored that iconic 40-yard screamer against Man United back in the day. Whilst everyone else in that stand at the time was jumping up and down, the TV cameras zoomed in on Mark, who was screaming for joy, and his kids were in tears of disbelief. So if you can imagine, he's clinging on to one kid in each arm. They're both in tears, like beside themselves, and he's just got his face is just like mid-scream. And it's just such a lovely picture. So Mark tragically passed away in 2017, aged 49. And fast forward 14 years, and his 2 kids, now adults, watched as the image of them and their dad was raised at Wembley. They were there to see it.
Wow.
Such a wonderful moment. And I think this is all about the DNA of the club and the fact that we didn't want to, as a club, put a picture of Mark Gahey up there boom, 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 Mateta. It was about the identity of the club and the fans and the people that make it all happen. And I think that's wonderful. The caption also read, "Wembley will shake and it will be beautiful." Neil, it did, and it was.
So, Andy, let's talk about the actual game, shall we?
Oh, let's. I mean, hopefully, to anyone listening to this, I'm sure you know what happened. But truthfully, as with most people who went to that game yesterday, I actually had to do a little bit of homework to find out what actually did happen in some of this, because I did get a bit carried away. Unlike some people, it wasn't through alcohol because I was driving, but it's difficult to keep track, especially when a lot of the game was, in essence, a mile away from me in the other box because of the style of play that was played. Really quite difficult to... So I almost kind of watched the game twice, actually, which was really interesting. But anyway, Palace started solidly, and it was City who had the first chance, which is exactly what we did not want to happen. Henderson denied Haaland very early on, and that would be the first of many moments for Henderson in this game.
Yeah, many moments, Andy. But there's one I want to talk about, and when we get to it...
Okay. All right. Oh, he's got... For those of you who can't see this, which you can't, Neil's got that look on his face, which is trouble is brewing. Okay, so shortly after that, Guardiola tries a header. Hendo says, "Not today." Again, 2 saves in, only 10 minutes gone. Wembley already belongs to Henderson. And we're only 10 minutes in. Also, at this point, I'm starting to think this is going to be one of these games. We are quite happy to let them have the ball. We've clearly gone for a tight, low block and are allowing them to run at us. And I know that it's a decent formula to play Man City with. It's not a decent formula to watch as a Palace fan with anxiety. And I was thinking this is going to be a long game for me. I wasn't thinking at that point it wasn't going to go our way, but I was very uncomfortable in my feelings of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the 15-minute mark, Mateta snatches the ball, passes it to Muniz. Muniz passes it back to Mateta, and so on. And at this point, every Palace fan in Wembley was thinking, "Oh, I've seen this before. Could this be the moment?" And there was a genuine feeling of, "Oh, hang on a minute. I think it was probably one of the first times we touched the ball in the game, actually, as well." Muniz charges like Cafu on Red Bull, squares it to Eze. Boom. 1 touch, 1 goal, first shot, first blood. Absolute scenes, Neil.
I can't believe that Palace got the perfect start. If Glasner had dreamt the night before, which I'm sure he did, his dream would be, we'll soak up a bit of pressure, and in our first counter-attack, we'll go down the other end and score, so we've got something to hold on to.
Yeah.
As I said in the bonus pod last week...
Oh, you did.
This is the only joy I'm going to get out of this podcast. As I said last week, first goal wins it.
Yeah.
Because of the way that Palace were going to set up. And I honestly couldn't believe that the very first chance worked out for them. I'll get to the tactics later as to why it probably did work out.
Yeah.
But the quality it takes in your very first attack to do everything right and score, I have to be honest and say fair play.
So clinical though, wasn't it? It was perfect. It was like a training ground exercise the way it looked. It was brilliant. And Eze's connection with that ball, it was 1 touch. It was mid-flow and he directed it perfectly. And I think the biggest thing about that is not necessarily about the actual shot itself. It was about his positioning and the fact that everyone in that build-up move knew where everyone was. And we were talking about that last week, weren't we?
It just worked like clockwork.
It did.
I mean, it literally, you just saw it work. Everybody knew where they had to be. Everyone passed the ball without really looking as well. Everyone just knew what the process would be. And it came off. And it was more the fact for me that it just came off first time.
Yeah.
That was just amazing and made me feel like name is on the cup. Like there's just, if that happens literally within the first 15, 20 minutes that you've had all that pressure and then you just go straight down the other end and score, I sunk to my seat and opened a bottle of rosé.
Well, I was also thinking at that point, funny enough, you were talking about the name on the cup. I was thinking to myself that there's that guy who has to sit and engrave the cup at the end of it. And I bet he was thinking to himself, I've got to spell Crystal Palace now, potentially. This is going to be an interesting one. I can't copy it from above. As I said, I spent the first half squinting to watch the game. I did remember my glasses this time because last time I went to Wembley, I didn't take my glasses.
Well done.
And it was all a bit hazy. And City were pretty much camped outside our box. We know that, right? And Glasner's tactics were let them have possession and punish them on the break, knowing that they will find pockets if we open up. So the compact defensive system seemed to be the best plan. As I said earlier, just not great to watch it as a Palace fan because you're just terrified. And it reminds you of when we used to play a very similar defensive role but not have the attack to go with it. Anyway, look, the game restarted and we went back to defensive wizardry for Palace. Shortly after, Haaland got through again and I was terrified, as everybody else was, because when you see him run through that defence, you just think he's never going to stop.
He's an animal, isn't he?
Absolute animal. Henderson rushes out and slightly forgets the rules of being a goalkeeper, handles it outside the box. The game continues, then it gets stopped. VAR checks, and it feels like a lifetime. And I, for one, and the other 30-odd thousand, 40,000 Palace fans in there, including Henderson, didn't even realise that it was him that was being checked until, as we found out after the game, he saw it on the screen with his name. The game had, because it was kind of counter-attacking style, obviously the game had actually ended up down the other end.
Yeah.
So when I saw VAR come up and we were kind of in their box in my head, I was like, hang on a minute. Have we got a penalty shout?
So
or
you
whatever?
guys had no clue that he'd done it
Nothing.
Outside of the box. You just thought,
no, I mean,
okay.
Unless you got the exact right angle, which they struggled to do and slowed it down really, really carefully. Both the feet were in the box, right? And I know that doesn't matter. But,
No, it doesn't, Andy.
But from looking at it from the stands,
I get
both
it.
the feet were in the box. And to be fair, we had a pretty much side view, but not an exact side view of Henderson's goal. And both his feet were in the box. It all happened so quickly. You'd kind of, from our point of view, we didn't even know whether Henderson had batted it away or whether it had been Haaland because his feet was going the same way as Henderson swiped. It was all a bit of chaos in that point. And there was, as I said, confusion. The VAR check took a lifetime. Most people confused, didn't even know what was being checked until we saw it on the screen. No red card. And we were like, didn't even know what for, but that's great news, no red card. Still 1-0. City fans absolutely melted down. You could hear the discontent.
Yeah.
And the Palace fans, I don't care. We cheered as if we'd scored again, right? Because by that point, we'd realised that there was a potential red card, or God knows what else was going to be happening there. What are your views on that situation, Neil? Because I'm sure you've got one.
It's a red card, Andy. It's a red card. There is
that
no
clear cut.
There is no. Well, goalkeeper comes out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
He handles the ball on purpose to take it away from the best striker in the world having an attempt on goal.
Okay.
What else is it?
I think that it is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Unintentional. I don't think he meant to come out the box. I think that the ball skidded, as Henderson says. The ball.
If you don't think that a goalkeeper, a professional goalkeeper, an international world-class goalkeeper like Dean Henderson doesn't know where the edge of his box is, then you're in cuckoo land, mate.
Well, no, I think that in my head, he started doing what he's done on many occasions, which is that he would always choose to come out.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he came out thinking that the ball would bounce in a certain way, and it didn't, and it was a bit of a strange bounce, a bit of a kind of a strange turn of the ball, and it threw him to the point where I think he was probably just going to get in the way of it, but not use his hands. And then, of course, Haaland realises the pace of the ball and the bounce of the ball and gets his leg just at the right point. And Henderson's probably like, am I in my box? I've got to take a risk. And his feet were, but obviously at that point. So I don't think he tried something.
Let me flip that round the other way. Let me say Lacroix, right? He's inside the box. Same situation. Yeah. Haaland's running through. Lacroix palms it with his hand away. What should happen?
Well, I think in the rule book, right, it's about the direction of travel, isn't it? Of the ball in terms of
one part of it.
Yeah, and it's like, is there a defender that is behind the ball? There was. Lacroix was behind the ball and in the line of the goal, like to the left of him.
Okay.
The ball was bouncing, and you can clearly see that you've got the picture of the ball, and to the left of it, you've got Haaland's foot pointing towards a right direction, and which was so if Henderson hadn't have hit it in that right direction with his hand, then Haaland would have done that with his foot, albeit not quite as hard. So whatever the outcome of that would have been, that ball would have ended up to the right-hand side of the goal. It wasn't going goal-bound.
But that's based on the concept that Dean Henderson is standing right there.
Yeah.
So if Dean Henderson is 1 yard back because he's not wanting to touch it with his hand outside of the box, Haaland has the ball. Haaland has the ball and he's facing the goal.
No, but I don't think he would have been. That's my point, you see. And that's where I think that
if you don't think Haaland can score after taking one touch from where he is on that box, the speed he is, the power he is, the class of striker that he is, he would score from that angle. He would touch it once and put it straight in the net. Simple as that.
Yeah, the ball wasn't going towards the goal. No. And that's why VAR made the decision they did, because they saw what I saw, which was that it was going in a directional angle towards the corner flag, actually. And therefore, he would have then had to have taken another touch to get it into the goal. And in which case, that would have been potentially covered by Lacroix or any of the other defenders that were there.
There are lots of different things here that what we're doing now is we're looking at it and going, what could have happened?
Yeah, of course.
And that's what's wrong about this rule. And it's not necessarily the referee's fault. It's not almost VAR's fault, but the rule is wrong in that Henderson purposefully touched the ball with his hand. Whether he knew he was in the area or out, he made an attempt to take the ball with his hand, which stopped Haaland having some level of goal-scoring opportunity, let's say.
Correct.
He was going to have a chance to score a goal.
Yeah.
Whether there be one defender or no defender, realistically, he had a chance. Dean Henderson gets away with that completely.
I can't believe he didn't even get a yellow card.
Well, that's the point. He can't. Because that's what's wrong with the rules. Because VAR have looked at it and they could only look at it for a red card. So if they've decided it's not a red card, now suddenly he can't get a yellow either for that. So it's like it never happened.
And they didn't even get a free kick on the outside of the box or anything, because obviously the game had continued.
And don't forget, later in the game, Henderson gets a yellow card for time wasting.
He does.
I'm just saying, there is something wrong with it there. Having said all of that, Andy, to win a cup, to win any trophy, you need luck.
Yeah.
You scored on your very first attempt. Henderson doesn't get a red card. There's all the luck you need.
Yeah.
You rode that luck.
And to summarise, in Henderson's post-match interview, he got asked about that very subject. And do you know what insight he gave us?
Go on.
He said, I quote, "I don't care. We won the game."
And that's fair, mate. That's absolutely right. And that's my point, that this is nothing to do with Palace. This is the rules being an arse, really, and it being ridiculous.
And it would have been very different if the ref had caught it straight off and he was right there, and he had caught it, then the whole situation would have played out differently.
Yep.
All I would say to the Man City fans is, how many of them have gone your way over the years?
Oh, absolutely.
And how many have gone Palace's way over the years?
Totally agree.
I think we're due a bit of a,
Yeah.
And if you're as good as you say you are, then you shouldn't be clutching at straws in that respect.
So that was all within, the first 30-odd minutes, was that? I think? So by this time, I'm halfway through the bottle of rosé, thinking, there is no way in the world this luck is changing for Palace.
Yeah. we then end up with a situation where at about sort of 36 minutes, Mitchell overstretches and clips Bernardo Silva.
Hang on, the luck
And
continues.
it's a penalty.
I forgot. Oh my god.
Or, as I saw it in the stands, and as I saw it on the telly this morning, he did touch the ball before he touched the player. Yeah. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on the rules. I think you probably know them more than I do. But if a player slides in, gets the ball before he makes contact with the player, that is not a foul or even a penalty, surely.
I would say that from what I've seen of the replays and what other people have talked about and what I can gather from the way that the VAR were replaying it and looking at it and looking at it. So I think this goes back to this whole rule that we had right at the beginning of the season that's changed this season around VAR not wanting to change an on-field decision unless there is absolute categoric evidence that something is wrong. I think VAR looked and couldn't distinguish for definite 100% if Mitchell had touched the ball or not. So because they couldn't 100% go, yep, he definitely touched the ball, they've said to the referee, there's not enough evidence here to change your opinion, or at least to send you to the VAR screen. And I think that's essentially what's happened.
It was tight.
It was tight, absolutely. I think you're right. I think he probably did just get a touch.
Well, when I saw it on TV, the direction of the ball changed when Mitchell's foot went in, right? The spin of the ball changed. So unless there's some kind of wizardry going on or Harry Potter was there, I think that is a clear cut for me. But I looked at it time and time again. And when I watched it on TV, the pundits on there were all like, to be fair, he did get the ball before he got, and don't get me wrong, he got the player good after he touched the ball. But
I think you're right. I think though it just comes down to there wasn't quite enough for the VAR to overturn it. The ref's given the decision, and I'm sitting there thinking, finally, the tide is going to turn.
Yeah,
Man City are going to actually score a goal here, and we're going to get all level, and then everything's going to change.
And I think it would have actually changed dramatically and given them a bit of momentum. But that wasn't to be, was it?
No.
So here's the interesting thing, and I think the talking point for Man City after the game, which is penalty awarded. Haaland and Marmoush stood there at the penalty spot whilst VAR took 72 years to work out whether Mitchell actually did touch the ball or not. And Haaland hands the ball to Marmoush. It looks like he didn't fancy it. Which is really interesting, isn't it? I know he's missed a couple recently and he's just come back from injury, but he's let Marmoush step up and take it. Well, what a mistake that was. Henderson guesses right. He celebrates at the Palace end, and the Palace fans legally appoint him as the new mayor of South London immediately. It was a hell of a save. So, 42 minutes carries on.
We're still not at half time yet.
No, we're nearly there. Doku tries a curler. Henderson flings out a limb like Stretch Armstrong. Again, Palace fans are now actually asking Neil, is he even human? Is where we're at right now. It just seems to be that he's all over the show, and it's just wonderful. Half-time comes. Palace somehow leading 1-0, and that's coming from a Palace fan, wondering whether to celebrate or lie down in a quiet room. I genuinely couldn't allow myself to be happy. I had a few people around me asking if I was okay, because everyone was smiling, thinking, we're going to win the FA Cup. I was thinking, we've been here before and we were 2-0 up. And we all know how that ended in the last game. I just didn't want to allow myself to believe that this could happen until that final whistle, because I just know that if they decided to join in, that they would, and it would be terrifying. So the game restarts. On the 49th minute, Eze nearly doubles it, but it's blocked, and it was a cracking effort as well. And then shortly after that, Muñez thinks he's got a second, and oh my God, I celebrated this like an absolute champion. He bundles in the ball after a proper goalmouth scramble. We all go absolutely nuts, Neil. Then we see the dreaded screen that you were expecting. And I saw this already because this is the point, actually, funny enough, that Gay got injured at this very time, which we'll talk about later. And I could see you got Gay, who knew very much that it wasn't a goal. And one of the other players, I can't remember who it was in the goal mouth, and he saw that they were all talking to each other. And you get that inkling, but the other Palace players were already doing some kind of momentous celebration and kind of got carried away with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Gay had got injured just before that, hadn't he? Because he got hit by the ball at that point. Got back up. There had been that bit of a sort of a break in play almost in some respect. Got back up, and then this goal goes in, and everyone's celebrating. From a TV point of view, it was clearly offside. It was very straightforward.
So hard because it was a massive scramble. There were players everywhere, and from my perspective, it's quite similar to that Gay one from the previous game, where there's a goal scramble, a ball deflects off a player who didn't even know it was happening, and then before you know it, like, you've got a goal disallowed just because someone was stood there. And I think bless Sarr, he ended up in the wrong place and ended up getting hit by the ball. It got deflected in the net, pounced on by Muniz, and it's just one of them unfortunate ones, really.
It is totally. But I think looking at the angle, I think it wasn't going to go in if it hadn't affected Sarri. I think
you're probably right.
I think the keeper would have saved it anyway. So one way or the other, it's worked out right anyway, because it's just it was not going to be a goal, full stop.
No. The last 30 minutes then, I will summarise by saying we defended for our lives. And we talked about this in the last podcast. You were saying, how on earth are Palace going to overthrow the mighty Man City that do not lose on these occasions normally? They've got a better team. We know that. They do. On paper, they've got a better team. They're more talented. They've got all the money in the world, and they're experienced at this level. How are we going to do that? And one of my answers to you was the passion and the want to win, right? And I think this is where it became so apparent. So we're now into the last 30 minutes, and I like to refer this as the stage where we defended for our lives. We spoke about this last week you asked me the question, actually, how on earth do Palace win this against the juggernaut that is Man City? And what have we got in the locker? And I spoke about that kind of showing of passion and the desire to make history. And there is a feeling of togetherness in this club. And I've never seen a team with such togetherness and such a push for a common goal. And that was so apparent in this last 30 minutes. I think anyone that was watching that wasn't a Man City fan was rooting for us. I had Arsenal fans and Liverpool fans and all the other teams that my mates support were all messaging me, which I was ignoring because I was watching the game. But they were all like, come on, Palace. I think everyone was shouting at the telly just as every ball went in. Every Palace player was jumping higher, was getting every ball, getting there first, putting their bodies on the line, getting injured, all the other stuff.
And I think also, if you think about it, Henderson, I mean, all the way through the whole game, he was fantastic. And in that last sort of 20, 30 minutes, he made saves from, Doku had a few, Gvardiol had one, Echeverri had one as well when he came on the pitch. That was a strange substitution, wasn't it?
It was a really strange. He got his debut, didn't he? I mean, he looked like a kid who'd wandered on the pitch from a stadium tour. It was very... I mean, that's not disrespectful, but it's a very strange platform when you're losing a cup final, your only chance at silverware, in the last 30 minutes to bring on someone for their debut.
I just think that screams of desperateness.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of them ones where if they won in the post-match conference, he'd be seen as a hero and Pep would be seen as a hero for making that
genius decision.
Genius decision, yeah. As it turned out, it was a questionable decision, along with a few others, which we'll talk about later. So, as I said, look, every block, every header, every clearance, we were there. And again, I didn't really see the severity of this situation until I watched it on telly today, that, every time a Man City player looked like they were breaking through, there was 2 or 3 Palace players flinging themselves in the way.
Shall I give you a couple of stats just on that defensive performance?
Yeah,
I just think it's worthwhile talking about it, right? Total clearances.
Yeah.
Man City made 16 total clearances, and that means from sort of the box area, the defenders have cleared the ball. Crystal Palace, 48. 48. Work that out. That's basically one every 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's insane.
Of which half of those, 24, were headed clearances. I just thought, looking at it from that perspective, you've got 21%, that's all, of the possession, which we knew it was going to be, something like that, but that's probably even less than I was expecting. Just shows how dominant Man City were in one area, which was keeping the ball. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but they had 23 shots as well. Interestingly, though, of those 23 shots, only 6 on target.
But that's because most of the Palace players were flinging themselves in the way of it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing. It was like watching England in a knockout competition in extra time, when there's that sheer desperation of, we could actually achieve something here and we want it so bad. And one that didn't really get many mentions, which I was disappointed about, was Richards, the USA defender, who's always been seen in the past as the backup option for Gay when he's injured, or Anderson back in the day, and Lacroix's come in now, who's obviously is the new Anderson, and has just done brilliantly. And everyone's been raving about Lacroix, but Richards hasn't really got the recognition that he deserves, because he's come in pretty much from nowhere, actually, and his distinguished heading of the ball was absolutely phenomenal. The way that he manages to rise above everybody else and get himself in them positions so calmly, one of them goes through, they're scoring. And we know that, right? You know how deadly they can be. Anyway, our defence stood firm. We were quicker, faster to every single ball. With each attack, I believe that City grew frustrated, and you could see the red mist.
Yeah, you could see the total frustration that they had in that. And the big teams, they don't like losing, because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. So then, Neil, we got through the 90 minutes and we were all talking in the stands, and we all knew what was coming, right? Because we had that ridiculous VAR wait. We've had a couple of stoppages and things like that. 10 minutes added time. At this point, we weren't watching a football match. We were trapped in a David Attenborough documentary about survival. That's how I felt. I was struggling to look at the pitch, is where I was at. I was really struggling. And honestly, they could have just bought a defibrillator out and a therapist at this point for me in the stadium. I was just terrified about the fact that we could get this close and it not pull off.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? With teams like ours that you support for years that have never won anything, you're waiting constantly for that disappointment.
You're programmed
because
for
it's years of hope that have been disappointed over the years. And so you get to that moment and you see 10 up on the board and you suddenly think, oh no, is this the moment? Is this it? Are we going to get this close and then lose it? So I totally understand that feeling that even with 30 seconds left, you still can't let yourself totally release, can you?
Just couldn't. Absolutely couldn't. And then, well, this is the thing, right? Because the final whistle went, I still can't believe I'm saying this, we won the FA Cup. Crystal Palace won the FA Cup. The announcer says, and the winners of the FA Cup 2025 are Crystal Palace. And the players drop to the floor, and there's a delay of emotion in the stands because everyone can't quite believe it's happened. And I just looked at my son and was just like, what has just happened? How have we just done that? And not only that, Neil, we've done it by conceding one goal in the entire competition.
Yeah, I think it just highlights the perfect tactical decisions that Glasner has made and how his team work hard for each other and create an ultimately great defensive unit that it's so difficult to break down. Yes, of course, they've conceded goals. They had a bad start to the season, but over this whole season, you could see the team getting better and better and better. And we've talked about the trend they've had the last 5, 6, 10 games of form that they've been showing. it just all culminated to this one specific performance where they felt comfortable shutting Man City out. They felt confident that they could do it. And I think that was the ultimate plan from the beginning anyway. I don't think anyone wanted, on the Palace side, I don't think anyone on the Palace side wanted this to be a shootout, wanted this to be 4-4 or anything like that. Glasner wasn't looking for that. He knew what his plan was. He set it out. And what he was kind of hoping for was for Pep to overthink it. And he did.
Yeah, absolutely. So we go back to the fans in tears, including a little tear in my eye, to be honest with you.
I'm not surprised.
I was sat there thinking, I've recently lost my mum, and I was sat there thinking of how pleased she would be that had happened, and that I would have got a phone call that night from her to say, did you watch the game? Yes, Mum, I was there. Of course I watched the game. And there was an elderly lady sat behind me actually, who'd said that she'd lost her husband recently and she came on her own, and bless her, I mean, I had to help her up the stairs. She was that elderly. And she was struggling to see because everyone was stood up and all this, but just the look in her face makes you realise that it's not just about kicking a ball about. No. It's got personal connections with people's lives, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful moment.
The Eagles have landed! The winners of the Emirates! Oliver's Army are on their way!
Going back to Glasner, the players drop to the floor in disbelief, and the players from the bench do what the players from the bench do and run out onto the pitch. Yeah. And Glasner just strolls out.
He was so calm, wasn't he?
As if he knew it all along. And it was like, yeah, this is all part of the plan. To summarise, a day that I genuinely will just never, ever forget. We got to lift the trophy, and it just shows you how unaware the Palace fans are of the protocol of these events, that everyone in the blocks where I was looking at the stand bit that had been set up in front, wondering what was going on, not realising that we had to look behind us.
Up to the sort of the royal box area, isn't it?
Because, luckily, obviously Man City went first and got their runners-up medals. And it took me halfway through that procession to realise that was going on behind us. Because for some unknown reason, the people at Wembley didn't feel like they should put that on the camera, which is very strange, strange. On the big screens. Although it did say winners, Crystal Palace, which I was quite happy with, so that they could leave that up there. We didn't really know what was going on, but we managed to turn around, we got a view of all that, and then, of course, all of the singing, the dancing, the celebrations at the end, the chanting, the watching Joel Ward in, obviously I couldn't announce it last week because we didn't know until that evening of the podcast that we did. He's obviously retiring at the end of this year. For those who don't know, he's obviously been in this team since we were promoted. He's the only one that played in the Championship with us that's still with us.
He was on the bench though, wasn't he?
He was on the bench, but he's club captain. Yeah, right?
But my point being that he got a medal because he was on the...
Yes.
He's actually on the bench,
he was on the bench. And he has played a part, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I think he has played a part actually in the competition, as most of them have actually. To see that journey for him as club captain, be with us in the days where we nearly went under, playing in the Championship when people didn't get paid and all that kind of stuff, and then going all the way through that journey of promotion, and to be one of the only player left from that time, and then announce that you're retiring, and in your one of the last 2 or 3 games, lift that cup is just a wonderful thing for him, and what a legend he is. So I'm so pleased for him, and then for us to watch something that only other clubs do, in my head, to lift a trophy, is the most surreal moment of my life. It genuinely is. I can't say it's the best moment of my life because obviously I've had 2 children.
You've met me.
And yes, I've met you, exactly. Neil, as well. But the most surreal moment, and really, when people say that kind of pinch me moment, it was that. It was like, is this real? And being next to Harry, my 12-year-old son, and sharing that moment with him, I think is something that every parent dreams of, to take their boy or their girl to a football game and watch them win something that they can talk about for the rest of their lives is just wonderful.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things really that we haven't covered, I guess, is there was an interesting thing that happened between Henderson and Pep after the game.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see this?
I did, yeah.
Bit of fisticuffs, not really fisticuffs, but handbags.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't even that, was it? It was just Pep being his usual petulant self when he loses a football game because he realises he's mucked it up himself.
Yeah, well, I thought that when I saw it in real life, I thought that it was about the potential red card and handball or whatever it would have been. It would seem that after looking it up online, and obviously various people get involved in terms of lip readers and things like this, don't they, in these situations? And obviously then Henderson came out afterwards and said what it was actually about. It would seem that it wasn't anything to do with that potential penalty or the sending off. It was actually to do with the time wasting that was going on, and Pep's utter kind of lividness about how Henderson was allowing the clock to run up in that situation.
Just so ridiculous, isn't it?
Mate, I mean, well, so basically what was meant to have been said was Henderson went up to Pep at the end of the game, as in Pep was shaking hands with all the Palace players, and Henderson went over to do the same. And Pep wagged his finger at him as if like, no, you don't come near me. And he said, at that point, you didn't deserve that. Disgrace was what he said to him. You didn't deserve that. Disgrace. To which Henderson replied, he stuck up all of his fingers to kind of signify 10, right? And he said, you still had your 10 minutes. In reference, of course, the 10 minutes additional time at the end of the game.
Sure.
Yeah. And I just think it's a real shame that a team of that stature and a manager of that stature is that petty, because I've seen Man City waste plenty of time against Palace over the years.
The irony and the sort of the two-facedness of football managers at the top level, I think that's just what's in them. It's an ultimate beast of wanting to win everything, and if they can't win the fair way, they'll try and find a different way. It's sport. It's what professional sport is, whether we like it or not. But it does leave a little bitter taste in your mouth. But I think what it also shows is that Palace got to them.
Oh, we got to him. And I'll tell you, that was one of the other things I was going to talk about, actually, was there was a lot of talk from the Man City fans, as there would have been the other way around, right? I know this, because you look at the points in the game that didn't go your way and you go, that's unfair, we should have won, right? But I think what all of the Man City fans haven't taken into account is that the referee didn't find his cards until very late on into that game.
Yeah.
And there were so many moments where Kevin De Bruyne and a few of the other players could have clocked up 2 or 3 yellow cards before they even got a yellow card. My indication from watching it was that De Bruyne should have been sent off probably even before that Henderson moment would have happened.
Yeah, the referee made a decision, a right decision in some respects, all the way through the game, to try and let the game flow as much as possible, to let as many tackles go as possible. Granted, he let a red card go, which shouldn't have happened with Henderson. Yeah. That was a wrong decision. But everything else, generally speaking, he set his stall out. He said, look, we're going to play as open as we can. Every time there's a foul, he's going to give it if he really has to. But otherwise, he's going to try and let it play. And you're quite right. Kevin De Bruyne was showing his age a little bit, because obviously he was playing, because the pressure was on Palace all the way through, he was pretty much just picking the ball up from the back 2 central defenders and then holding that ball. And every time he either got the pass wrong or Palace started to attack, he was the one left there trying to chase down, whoever it might be, Mateta or whoever.
Chase down or pull down.
Exactly, yeah. Just
or
stop.
Take out.
And that's the City way anyway. That is the City way. I'll get onto tactics in a second, but it was very clear that there were quite a few cards that didn't happen. So Pep, is just really showing his petulant and sort of, he's just a bad loser, and that's because they don't lose very often.
Yeah, it's difficult when you don't lose often. So the other thing that we haven't really spoken about is the injuries, right?
So Guéhi went off, didn't he?
He did. He got a blow to the eye, and he still made it up the steps to collect his medal and was there in the celebrations at the end, but with one eye.
So I doubt you'll see him the rest of the season now. There's only 2 games anyway, isn't there? So
no, I don't think we will. I think online it's stating that they reckon he'll be back for the next England game.
Sure.
Is what they're saying. But he actually got, straight after the celebrations, he got rushed to hospital in an ambulance and wasn't discharged apparently until midnight. So, so he missed, because the team basically went to Wembley Box Park for a big celebration, which I've seen quite a bit of.
But that was messy.
Yeah, messy is a good word. Messy socials were shared unofficially on a few of their accounts, which I'm sure some of their PR people might want them to take down very quickly, actually. But yeah, he missed that, and he wasn't the only one, actually, because Wharton as well, who's only just come back from injury, ended up in hospital for precautionary concussion checks after Kevin De Bruyne hit him in the back of the head with a ball.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, must have been a hell of a hit, because...
Oh, he was like a metre away, though, so I can understand it.
Yeah. He posted a photo of himself in a hospital robe, in a hospital bed, late Saturday night, with the caption, "Apparently we won an FA Cup," implying that he'd obviously forgotten the game and was unaware of it because of his head injury, which I loved, which was lovely. So there we go. Well, look, I hope them two get better soon, and obviously probably not expecting either of them to play against Wolves this week. So, Glasner, this is an interesting talking point, right? And we covered this in the preview of this game, which was that after City beating Palace 5-2 earlier on, after Palace going 2-0 up, scoring the third, it getting disallowed, and then, of course, Kevin De Bruyne came on and that momentum changed. Glasner, when shaking hands with Pep on the touchline at the end of the game, said to him, "If we meet again, you can't play that system because we will solve it."
And that system he was referring to was the sort of the box midfield that Pep had that day and had used most of that second half of the season, where you have sort of 2 sitting and 2 10s in that midfield and keep it narrow and all the fullbacks come in and all these sorts of things. So he was talking about that. And I think we spoke about this on the final preview pod, saying, will Pep overthink it? Do you want me to talk through some of that?
Go for it, Neil.
Headline, Pep Guardiola did overthink it. It frustrates me. I mean, I'm not a City fan. I don't care one way or the other. But he's got this in his locker where he gets to a final and feels like he has to do something. He has to create some sort of great masterpiece to outfox the other manager. And dare I say it, Glasner got in his head. He must have, mustn't he? Because suddenly you get to the final and you see the lineup, and he changes that box midfield formation that had been working pretty well, to be fair, recently, and instead moves it to a 3-5-2.
Yeah, 2 up front, yeah.
Yeah, so he has Haaland and Mamouche up front together. The idea, I presume, is to get the ball wide, crossing it repeatedly for those 2 strikers. And I understand that. And having the 5 in midfield, as I said in the pod before, you try and keep your players wide to stop, obviously, your fantastic marauding fullbacks or wing-backs. And then that hopefully will then stop that play from materialising.
And I guess in theory, Neil, it kind of works.
In theory, it works. The concept, and actually, if you look at the stats, if you look at the way the game ran out, you would look at that and go, well, it actually sort of did work to some respects. The ultimate issue, really, Palace had, I think, 7 shots on goal. I think 2, that's ill, or 2 or 3 were on target. You know, so like you say, it did work to some degree. But the actual winner itself was exactly what he was trying to stop. So it was specifically the flaws in the Man City 3-5-2 that caused the problem.
Yeah.
Throughout that game, Palace, all they had to do, I say all they had to do, but all they had to do was bypass City's midfield by playing those long balls up to Mateta. He would take it down. He was so strong and so good on Saturday. He really was. He took it down. Palace then had the time and the space to work at the ball out to whoever was on whichever wing, the wing backs. And obviously Munoz is just like a greyhound, as you said. And he was there all the time. And that goal in particular, Mateta takes it down, finds Munoz because he's literally just going straight down there. Now, the issue is in that formation, not just the formation, but also the players that City or Pep decided to put on the pitch. There was no number 6. There was no real defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
And this was, I beggars belief.
Well, he was gambling on the fact that he wouldn't need one, right? The back, the back 3-4, whatever it was fine.
But we're not talking about, putting a 6 foot, 28 stone bouncer at a number 6 role. The players he's got, appreciate Rodri's injured, but he's still got the January signing, Nico Gonzalez. He's still got Kovacic, who plays very well as a defensive midfielder as well. Yeah. Instead, he's playing Bernardo Silva, he's playing Kevin De Bruyne, he's playing so many attacking players that when Mateta gets that ball, he's got no one in front of him, no one running back, no defensive midfielder seeing where the gaps are. And he's got Nico O'Reilly playing on the left wing, who's a young kiddie, who's not experienced enough, who's always looking forward, not looking back.
Yeah.
And Munoz was just past him. And that space on either side of those 3 central defenders and not having that defensive midfielder who theoretically could cover and run depending on where that ball goes caused all the problems in my eyes. Look, bottom line is, don't get me wrong, brilliant. Munoz, is it Munoz?
Munez, yeah.
Munez. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But the system that Guardiola put in place causes those problems.
Yeah.
And it was so strange to watch that he suddenly decided to change his shape just for the FA Cup final.
The tactics is what won it and the passion is what won it. And I think the two together is what got us through it. Let's just have a quick look. We did a big feature on this, on the build-up to this game, which is like, if they could actually win it, what would it mean, right? And there's been a few other things that have cropped up since, actually, that I completely forgot about.
Okay.
The obvious one that we spoke about is the fact that we're now in the Europa League. Neil, Crystal Palace are in Europe. And not even in the qualifying rounds, right? We're straight into the 36-team league phase, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've got a minimum of 8 guaranteed Europa League games. Thursday nights from September until January are now ours to do European games. And the final being played in Turkey on the 20th of May, 2026. So I'm already looking at flights for that one. Because, of course, let's all be realists here. We've won a cup now, and we're now in the cup that Glasnow's already won.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, that's progression for you, right? Also, the thing that I did forget about was the Community Shield.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So
you get to go to Wembley again.
The 3rd time.
Watch a load of unfit players play against another load of unfit players for a cup that no one cares about.
Although it is a cup.
No, it is, fair point.
It's a cup.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're heading back to Wembley for the 3rd time. And that's, of course, Saturday, the 9th of August, Liverpool versus Palace. So in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a dress rehearsal for that at Anfield.
Yeah.
So we've got the last game of the season and the first game of the season with Liverpool.
We have got a whole summer to talk about all the different things that could be happening next season, including the European tour for Crystal Palace. I won't even mention my team yet because this is a bonus pod just for Crystal Palace. But what I will say is we can absolutely talk all the way through the concepts of how Crystal Palace get ready for Europe, because there's lots of things to be done.
Oh, yeah.
There is, isn't there? Like, you've got to get a squad that's good enough to do Saturday, Thursday, or Sunday, Thursday every week.
Depth.
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a few things. I'm presuming there's quite a few players out of contracts. You know, there's lots of stuff that needs to be done now because of that situation, which is a great work to be done.
Exciting time.
It really is. I feel you. I've been there, and it's an amazing feeling. So I'm very excited for you, and I think we can spend quite a few episodes over the summer talking about all these sorts of things. You've got the joy yet as well of all the thousands of possible rumours of transfers and all that sort of stuff. So the summer's going to be very busy for us.
Well, yeah, and I think this is the problem with success, because with success,
Oh, look at you!
no, it's true though. With success comes rumours of people leaving, and this is what happened to us last time at the end of last season when we started winning convincingly. And last season the casualties of this were Elise and Anderson were probably the two big ones. Obviously, we know what happened to Elise since, but Gay, Eze, Wharton, to name but a few, have all been linked with clubs of ridiculous stature, and I think that is one of the negative to it. But the positive of now winning that, as opposed to losing yesterday, means that potentially we might not lose all of the people that we might have lost if we'd have lost. So I think Gay's probably gone anyway, but Eze and Wharton, you never know. Let's see what happens. I think we, as you alluded to, we're going to have to spend some money now because we need a bigger squad, which is good. So we're almost forced into progress in that respect.
Do you guys have money? And I mean that in all due respect. Do you know if you guys have money to spend?
Yeah, I think we have got money because we've still got some of the money from the outgoings from last year.
Right, okay.
But don't forget, we've got our new main stand being built.
Exactly. That's why I was wondering,
moment.
because
So I
that's,
think
that's
that's
surely
why-
taking a lot of the money at the moment.
Yeah, no, there is a kitty, and we won't get into this now because
No,
it's a
of
whole
course not.
other can of worms.
Absolutely.
But there is a lot of talks about the ownership of the club and investment and so on, and we know that the current investors have already pumped in some additional money in the last couple of weeks. Actually,
They freed up some shares, haven't they? I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
let's talk about that on another pod then, like you say, in the closed season, and we can get all the way into that.
yeah, I don't for one second think we're not going to be backed. I think we will, and I think that's going to be all part of keeping Glasner at the club, which
Sure.
is you've got to give them the tools to do the job. But look, most importantly, the biggest win is the fact that we won our first ever major trophy, and I was there to see it with my son at Wembley. What a day. Well, that's it for our bonus episode of Seagull Eagle, celebrating silverware and surviving stoppage time-induced heart attacks. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button and follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram and X. Just search Seagull Eagle. Or drop us an email at seagulleaglepodcast@gmail.com. We'll be back this week with more football fever, tactical nonsense and whichever emotional rollercoaster Palace and Brighton throws at us next, with reviews of Brighton versus Liverpool and Palace versus Wolves. Until then, polish your imaginary medals, relive that Eze goal for the 400th time, and as always, up the Eagles! Eagles!